A quiet night has settled around you. The world outside is growing softer now. The busy sounds of the day are loosening their hold, one by one, like knots in an old rope. The air feels slower. The room feels warmer. Somewhere beyond the window, the dark sky is spread like deep blue cloth, and the stars are resting in their ancient places. For this next hour, there is nothing you need to solve. Nothing you need to chase. Nothing you need to become. You may simply listen. You may simply breathe. And if sleep comes before the story ends, that is perfectly all right. The old philosophers would not mind. They knew that wisdom was not something to be seized in a hurry. It was something to return to again and again, like a path through olive trees, or the sound of water moving gently over stone. Tonight we are going far back in time. Back before electric lights. Back before the soft glow of screens. Back to a world of oil lamps, clay cups, folded cloaks, marble steps, market voices, sea wind, and scrolls written by hand. We are going to the Roman world when emperors ruled from palaces, armies marched along stone roads, and philosophers walked slowly through courtyards, asking what it meant to be free. And in that world, among all the great names, among senators and generals, poets and governors, there lived a man with no kingdom, no army, no wealth, and no official power. His name was Epictetus. Or at least that is the name history remembers. It is not certain that it was the name given to him as a child. The word itself means something like acquired or purchased. A quiet reminder that he was born into slavery, into a life where others believed they could own his body, his time, his labor, and his future. And yet across the long centuries, it is Epictetus who remains. Not the masters who commanded him. Not the officials who looked down on him. Not even many of the emperors who lived in marble rooms while he lived simply. Their names may survive in history books, but his voice survives in the inner rooms of human life. His words still arrive softly when someone is anxious. When someone is afraid of what others think. When someone has lost something. When someone feels trapped by events they did not choose. He taught that freedom begins not with what happens outside us, but with the small, steady place within us that can choose how to meet the world. He taught that some things belong to us and some things do not. Our opinions, our choices, our intentions, our actions, these are ours. But reputation, wealth, status, whether other people's judgments, the rise and fall of fortune, the sudden turns of life, these are not fully ours. And so, slowly, calmly, he invited his students to stop trying to hold the whole world in their hands. To hold only what was truly given to them. Their own character. Their own response. Their own quiet will. Tonight we will follow him gently. Not as a loud heroic tale. Not as a story of conquest. But as a night journey. From a child in Hierapolis, where hot springs steamed beneath the hills, to Rome, where the lamps burned late in crowded streets, to the school of a philosopher named Musonius Rufus, to a life marked by pain but not defined by it, to exile, to a little school in Nicopolis near the Western Sea, where students came to learn how to live, and finally to the simple wisdom that outlasted palaces. So let the room grow still. Let the shoulders soften. Let your breathing find its own quiet rhythm. And imagine far away an ancient town under the moon. A town of warm stone and pale terraces. A town in Phrygia in Asia Minor where the earth itself seemed to breathe. This was Hierapolis. The name means sacred city. It was a place of mineral springs, white cliffs, healing waters, and temples where people came hoping the gods might notice them. At dawn, the land could seem almost dreamlike. Steam lifted slowly from the pools. The hills glowed pale in the morning light. Travelers arrived with dust on their sandals. Merchants opened their stalls. Priests moved through courtyards. And somewhere in this city, around the middle of the 1st century, a child was born who would later be called Epictetus. We do not know his mother's name. We do not know his father's name. We do not know what house first sheltered him, or what lullabies he may have heard, or whether anyone held him gently and imagined a bright future. History often preserves the names of those who ruled, and forgets the names of those who endured. And yet sometimes a forgotten child becomes the one who teaches the rulers. This is one of those stories. As a child born into slavery, Epictetus did not begin life with the ordinary hopes of a free citizen. His path was likely decided by others before he understood the meaning of the decision. In the Roman world, slavery was woven into homes, markets, farms, workshops, and palaces. It was treated as ordinary by society, though it placed one human being beneath the legal power of another. But even in such a world, the inner life of a person remained mysterious. No law could fully measure it. No master could fully see it. No chain, no title, no household record could say what thoughts moved behind the eyes of a quiet child. Perhaps young Epictetus watched travelers in Hierapolis and wondered where the roads went. Perhaps he listened to different languages in the market. Greek, Latin, local tongues. The voices of sellers, soldiers, pilgrims, and servants. Perhaps he saw men in fine robes hurry toward temples, while others carried water, swept floors, led animals, or waited in silence. Ancient cities were full of contrasts. The sacred and the ordinary. The wealthy and the poor. The noisy market and the silent shrine. A boy like Epictetus would have seen early that life was unevenly given. Some people were born to command. Some were born to obey. Some slept on soft couches. Some slept wherever they were permitted. And yet later in life, he would become the teacher of a strange and powerful idea. That the deepest freedom is not given by birth. It is practiced. It is trained. It is remembered. It begins in the mind. At some point, Epictetus was taken from the land of his birth to Rome. We can imagine the journey only softly. Roads, ports, voices, the movement of people and goods across the empire. Asia Minor was tied to Rome by trade, power, administration, and sea routes. Ships crossed the Mediterranean. Carts creaked along roads. Letters moved from province to capital. Officials came and went. The empire was a great web, and even a child could be pulled through it. Rome, when Epictetus came to it, was the heart of power. A city of noise and stone. A city where dawn began early with wheels, animals, shouted greetings, doors opening, and sandals striking pavement. The air smelled of bread, smoke, oil, rain on stone, and the heavy life of thousands upon thousands of people crowded together. At night, Rome changed. The heat softened. Lamps glowed in doorways. The white columns became silver under the moon. The rich reclined in dining rooms. The poor gathered in narrow streets. And from the Palatine Hill, where imperial power looked down upon the city, decisions moved outward like ripples over water. Epictetus entered this world as a slave in the household of Epictetus, a powerful freedman connected to the imperial court. Epictetus had once been enslaved himself, and then had risen high in service to emperors. This was one of the complicated truths of the Roman world. A person could be oppressed, then freed, then become powerful over others. The world did not always teach gentleness to those who survived it. In such a household, Epictetus would have seen luxury close enough to touch, but not to own. Fine lamps, polished floors, messages from important people, visitors of rank, servants moving silently. The business of empire happening in rooms where a young enslaved man might stand unnoticed. But being unnoticed can sometimes become its own kind of education. A quiet person sees much. He sees how power speaks when it thinks no one important is listening. He sees how fear hides beneath expensive clothing. He sees how anger makes people small. He sees how desire makes them restless. He sees how those who appear free may be ruled by approval, appetite, ambition, and fear of losing what they have. Perhaps Epictetus learned early that there are many forms of captivity. Some are visible, some are not. A person may wear a gold ring and still be chained to praise. A person may command a household and still be a servant of anger. A person may sit near an emperor and still tremble at every rumor. The young Epictetus, standing in the rooms of power, may have begun to sense what he would later teach, that freedom and slavery are not always where the world says they are. But he did not discover this alone. In Rome, he encountered a teacher, a Stoic philosopher named Musonius Rufus. Musonius was respected as one of the great Stoic teachers of his age. He taught that philosophy was not merely something to talk about or decorate the mind with like a fine statue in a garden. Philosophy was practice. It was training. It was the shaping of a life. To him, wisdom was not for display. It was for eating simply, speaking truthfully, enduring difficulty, acting with justice, caring for others, remembering what matters. For Epictetus, still enslaved, the lessons of Musonius must have carried a special weight. Imagine a room in Rome where a philosopher speaks in a low voice. Not a grand hall, not a palace, just a space where students gather close enough to hear. A lamp flickers. The evening air moves at the doorway. Outside, the city continues with all its business. Sellers, carts, officials, soldiers, laughter, footsteps. Inside, the teacher asks a simple question. What is truly good? Is it money? No, because money can be used badly. Is it health? No, because a healthy person can still live foolishly. Is it reputation? No, because reputation depends on other people, and other people are not always wise. Is it power? No, because power can make a person cruel, anxious, and afraid. Then what is good? The Stoic answer was gentle but demanding. The good is virtue. The good is a soul in harmony with reason. The good is justice, courage, self-control, and wisdom. Everything else is something to be used, received, relaced, or endured. Not hated, not worshipped, simply understood. For a young man like Epictetus, these teachings were not abstract. They were close to the skin. If freedom could only mean legal status, then he had little of it. If peace depended on comfort, then he was at the mercy of others. If dignity depended on how he was treated, then it could be taken away at any moment. But Musonius and the Stoics offered another doorway. A person could be deprived of many things and still guard the inner faculty of choice. A person could suffer unfairness and still refuse to become unjust. A person could be spoken to harshly and still choose not to let hatred take root. A person could lose status, comfort, even home, and still ask quietly, what kind of human being shall I be now? This was not an easy teaching. It was not a soft escape from life. It was a slow discipline, like learning to breathe evenly while walking uphill, like learning to keep a lamp lit in a windy courtyard. Epictetus absorbed these lessons deeply. Later, when he taught, he would not sound like a distant scholar arranging delicate ideas. He would sound like someone who had tested them in the rough places of life. There is an ancient tradition that Epictetus lived with an injured leg. Some later accounts say the injury came through cruelty from his master. Others speak more generally of his lameness, without certainty about how it happened. For our quiet journey tonight, we do not need to dwell on the pain. We need only pause beside the image it leaves us. A man who walked with difficulty. A man whose body carried a visible limitation. A man who knew not as theory but as daily fact that the body can be vulnerable. Imagine him in the narrow streets of Rome. Others moving quickly. Sandals tapping over stone. Carts rolling past. Voices rising and fading. And Epictetus walking more slowly. Perhaps leaning on a staff. Perhaps pausing when others did not need to pause. The world often honors speed. The ancient world did too. Fast messengers. Strong soldiers. Commanding gestures. Public confidence. But slowness can make a person attentive. Slowness allows a different knowledge to arrive. The details of a doorway. The sound of a fountain. The expression on a passing face. The feeling of one step after another. The awareness that life is not guaranteed in the way pride imagines. If Epictetus was wounded, he did not build his teaching around bitterness. He did not say that pain was nothing. He did not pretend the body did not matter. The Stoics were often misunderstood this way. They did not teach people to be stone. They taught people to notice the difference between what happens to us and what we make of what happens. Between the first touch of pain and the story we add to it. Between the event and the judgment. Between the wound and the surrender of the whole self to the wound. Epictetus would later teach that illness can trouble the body, but not necessarily the will. Lameness can affect the leg, but not necessarily the character. Insult can touch the ears, but not necessarily the soul. This does not mean life is easy. It means there is a small sacred space within us that deserves protection. And perhaps because Epictetus had so little outward control early in life, he became a master of noticing where control truly begins. In time, Epictetus was freed. The details are uncertain. We do not know the exact day. We do not know whether the morning was bright or cloudy. We do not know whether anyone congratulated him. We do not know whether he stood alone afterward, feeling the strange quiet of a life newly his own. But freedom came, at least in the legal sense. And yet, for Epictetus, legal freedom was only one kind of freedom. Important, yes. Deeply important. But not complete. A person can be freed by law and still be enslaved by fear. A person can leave a master's house and still be ruled by anger. A person can own property and still be possessed by desire. So Epictetus began to teach. In Rome, among people who had more status than he had once had, he spoke about the inner life with the authority of someone who had lived what others only debated. We may imagine his room of instruction. Not grand, not ornamental. A teacher seated simply. Students gathered on benches or mats. A few wealthy young men. Perhaps some older listeners. Perhaps someone curious, someone skeptical, someone restless. Outside, Rome kept shining and decaying, building and burning, praising and punishing, as great cities do. Inside, Epictetus asked his listeners to look directly at themselves. Not at the emperor, not at their rivals, not at the weather, not at the unfairness of other people. First, themselves. What has disturbed you? Was it the event, or the judgment you placed upon the event? What do you seek? Is it in your power? Or have you handed your peace to something that may leave tomorrow? What do you fear? Is it death, poverty, disgrace, pain? The opinion of someone whose own life is not peaceful. Again and again, Epictetus brought the student back. Back from the world's noise. Back from complaint. Back from fantasy. Back from the exhausting wish to rearrange everything outside the self. Back to the one place where work could begin. Your own choice. Your own reason. Your own response. This was not a small teaching. It was a revolution turned inward. Rome had conquered lands. Epictetus asked people to govern themselves. Rome built roads across mountains. Epictetus asked people to walk the path between impulse and action. Rome raised arches to victory. Epictetus asked people to master resentment, fear, envy, and pride. In the eyes of the world, an emperor was greater than a teacher in a modest room. But time is strange. Time listens differently than crowds do. Crowds cheer power. Time preserves wisdom. And somewhere in those quiet teachings, words were being spoken that would survive long after imperial commands had become dust. But Rome was not always kind to philosophers. Philosophy can appear harmless when it sits on a shelf. But when it teaches people to value virtue over power, truth over favor, and conscience over fear, rulers may become uneasy. Under the Emperor Domitian, philosophers were banished from Rome. Epictetus was among those who had to leave. Again, we do not need to imagine this as a scene of loud drama. Let us imagine it quietly. A teacher gathering a few belongings. A cloak, a cup, perhaps some writing materials. A few students saying farewell. The city that had held so much of his life now receding behind him. Rome with its tall buildings, crowded baths, smoky kitchens, marble temples, and restless ambition. Rome where he had been enslaved. Rome where he had studied. Rome where he had taught. Rome where he had learned the difference between outer power and inner freedom. Now he left it. Exile is often treated as loss. And it is loss. A familiar street disappears. A known doorway closes. The faces of companions grow distant. The sounds of one city are replaced by the sounds of another. But for a Stoic, exile was also a lesson. You are not rooted only where others permit you to stand. You carry your character with you. You carry your practice. You carry the faculty of choice. You carry the possibility of living well. So Epictetus traveled westward across the empire to Nicopolis in Epirus, in northwestern Greece. Nicopolis means city of victory. It had been founded by Augustus after the naval victory at Actium. It stood near the sea, near memories of empire, near waters where the fate of Rome had once turned. But by the time Epictetus came there, Nicopolis was not merely a monument to imperial triumph. It became the place where a former slave taught a quieter victory. Victory over fear. Victory over craving. Victory over the belief that life must obey us before we can be at peace. Imagine the road to Nicopolis. Dust rising softly, Olive trees moving in the wind. Hills fading blue in the distance. The sea appearing now and then like a sheet of dim silver. At evening, travelers stop. A small fire is lit. Bread is broken. Someone pours water. The stars appear, the same stars that watched Hierapolis in Rome. Epictetus arrives not as a prince, not as an official, not as a man surrounded by guards. He arrives as a teacher with a wounded body, a disciplined mind, and a message that did not need marble to make it strong. In Nicopolis, he opened a school. Students came. Some were young men from good families, preparing for public life. Some likely came out of curiosity. Some came because they had heard of his sharpness, his sincerity, his unusual force. But in our sleep story, let the school be quiet. Let it be morning. A courtyard washed with pale light. A few benches. A shaded colonnade. The smell of dust, wax tablets, wool cloaks, and the sea wind. Epictetus sits or stands before his students. He is not trying to impress them. He is trying to wake them gently from confusion. A student worries about reputation. Epictetus asks whether reputation is truly his possession. A student fears losing money. Epictetus asks whether money was ever promised to remain. A student is angry at an insult. Epictetus asks whether another person's words must become his master. A student dreams of office, rank, applause. Epictetus asks what price he is willing to pay for applause. Will he flatter? Will he lie? Will he abandon his own judgment? Will he become smaller inside just to appear larger outside? These were not questions for ancient students only. They are questions that still come at night. What have I allowed to rule me? Whose opinion have I mistaken for my own worth? What am I trying to control that never belonged to me? What simple duty is waiting quietly in front of me? Epictetus did not ask his students to withdraw from life completely. He did not say, do nothing. He did not say, feel nothing. He did not say, love nothing. He said, understand what you are doing. Love, but remember that all mortal things are fragile. Work, but do not make your soul depend on the result. Serve your city, but do not sell your character for rank. Care for the body, but know that the body changes. Welcome what comes when it is not yours to choose. Choose well when choice is yours. One of his most famous teachings begins simply. Some things are up to us and some things are not. It is so plain that a child can hear it, and so deep that a lifetime may not exhaust it. Some things are up to us. Our judgments, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, our choices. Some things are not up to us. Our body not entirely. Our property not securely. Our reputation not completely. Our offices not permanently. Other people almost never. To live peacefully, he said, we must learn the difference. Not once, not as an idea, but every day, every morning, every evening, in every irritation, in every fear, in every small disappointment. Imagine a student in Nicopolis waking before dawn. The room is cool. A little lamp burns low. Outside, the sea is not yet visible, but its breath can be felt in the air. The student remembers Epictetus' instruction. Today I will meet people who are hurried, proud, ungrateful, confused, or unkind. But they act this way because they do not see clearly what is good. I do not need to be surprised. I do not need to become like them. My work is to guard my own purpose. This is not a hard wall against the world. It is a soft preparation, like putting on a cloak before stepping into wind. The Stoic morning was not meant to make the heart cold. It was meant to make it steady. And in the evening, the student might return to himself again. What did I do well? Where did I speak too quickly? Where did anger carry me? Where did fear persuade me? What can I do more gently tomorrow? Not with self-hatred, not with harshness, but with attention. As a gardener looks at a young tree and notices where it needs support. Epictetus taught that philosophy should be lived in small acts. The way one eats, the way one listens, the way one answers insult, the way one treats a servant, the way one waits, the way one loses, the way one receives praise without becoming drunk on it, the way one receives blame without collapsing beneath it. This is why his school mattered. It was not a place for collecting clever phrases. It was a place for training the soul. And one of the young men who came to hear him was named Arrian. Arrian would later become a public official, a historian, and a writer. But when he sat with Epictetus, he was a student listening to a teacher whose own writings have not survived. Epictetus himself may not have written books for us. His wisdom came through speech, through questions, through correction, through vivid comparisons, through the living presence of a teacher addressing a student in the room. Arrian wrote down what he heard. Not perfectly, perhaps. No student can preserve a voice exactly. But he preserved enough. The discourses, the Enchiridion or handbook, a small manual of Stoic living, a guide not for winning arguments but for meeting life. It is strange to think how fragile history can be. A lamp burns late. A student writes. A scroll is copied. Another copy is made. Centuries pass. Libraries rise and fall. Languages change. Empires disappear. And still somehow the voice of Epictetus reaches us. A man born without power becomes a guide for people he would never meet. A teacher in a modest room becomes more lasting than many who sat on thrones. The emperors of Rome had statues. Epictetus had students. The emperors had decrees. Epictetus had sentences that entered the conscience. The emperors commanded provinces. Epictetus asked human beings to command themselves. There is a quiet beauty in that. Not loud, not triumphant in the ordinary sense. Just steady, like a candle that continues to burn after the feast has ended, after the guests have gone, after the palace has grown silent. Let us rest for a moment in Nicopolis. The afternoon is fading. The stone is warm from the day. A few students walk together after a lesson. The sea wind moves through the edges of their cloaks. One of them is troubled. He has received a letter from home. Perhaps his family expects something of him. Perhaps he fears failure. Perhaps he longs for recognition. The others listen. Then softly one remembers the teacher's words. Do not seek for events to happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly. This teaching can sound strange at first. Does it mean we never act? No. Does it mean we never hope? No. It means we stop demanding that the universe become our servant before we allow ourselves peace. We plant the tree. We water it. We protect it as best we can. But we do not command the rain. We write the letter. We speak honestly. We do our work with care. But we do not command the reply. We love another person. We treat them kindly. We are present while they are here. But we do not own time. We do not own change. We do not own the hidden road of another soul. Epictetus' wisdom is not a wall against grief. It is a lamp inside grief. A way to move through life without being shattered by every wind. He used simple images. Life as a banquet. If a dish comes to you, take it modestly. If it passes by, do not grab. If it has not yet come, do not stretch your desire toward it. Wait. Receive. Let go. This is such a quiet image. A table. A shared meal. A hand that does not clutch. A heart that does not demand every dish. How different from the hunger of ambition. How different from the restless mind that believes nothing is enough. He also compared life to a voyage. If the ship stops at a harbor and you go ashore to gather water, you may pick up a shell, or an onion, or some small thing along the way. But keep your mind on the ship. When the captain calls, you must return. The little things of life are not evil. Shells, onions, houses, honors, friendships, routines, pleasant days. They may be received with gratitude. But they are not the ship. They are not the final harbor. They are not the whole meaning of being alive. So enjoy what is given, but keep listening. Keep the soul ready. Not tense. Not afraid. Just ready. Like a traveler who knows the road continues after sunset. Epictetus also taught about roles. Each of us enters life with certain roles not fully chosen. Child, sibling, neighbor, citizen, friend, student, teacher, worker, traveler, guest. Some roles are brief. Some last a lifetime. Wisdom means asking, what does this role require of me now? Not what does my pride want. Not what will make me admired. Not what is easiest. But what is fitting. If I am a friend, can I be loyal? If I am a child, can I be respectful without surrendering reason? If I am a citizen, can I act justly? If I am a teacher, can I care more for truth than applause? If I am tired, can I still be gentle? If I am disappointed, can I still be fair? This is practical wisdom. It belongs in kitchens, streets, letters, workplaces, and bedrooms where people lie awake thinking over the day. It belongs to anyone who has ever wished they had spoken more calmly. Anyone who has ever feared being judged. Anyone who has ever lost control of the future and wondered how to live now. Epictetus would not tell such a person to become perfect overnight. He would say, begin here. With this impression, this thought, this fear, this desire. Hold it up to the light. Ask whether it is true. Ask whether it is yours to control. Ask what virtue requires. Then take the next step. Only the next step. There is something deeply restful in this. The mind does not need to carry the whole world. Only the next honest action. Only the next calm breath. Only the next returning. In the ancient world, philosophy was often practiced aloud, but it was also practiced in silence. A student might copy a sentence onto a wax tablet. Write it in the morning. Carry it through the day. Return to it at night. In the dimness of a small room, by the light of an oil lamp, the words would appear and disappear as the flame moved. Some things are up to us. Some things are not. The sentence is simple enough to sleep beside. And perhaps tonight you can let it become soft inside you. Not as a command. Not as a test. Just as a small stone placed in the hand. Smooth. Ancient. Quiet. Some things are up to us. Some things are not. The breath comes in. The breath goes out. You do not need to control every thought before sleeping. You do not need to finish every worry. You do not need to settle every future possibility. There are things for tomorrow. There are things for time. There are things for other people. There are things for chance. And then there is the small, gentle space that is yours. The choice to release the jaw. The choice to soften the hands. The choice to let the body rest. The choice to stop arguing with the night. Epictetus' life makes this teaching more than an idea. He was born without social power. He lived under another person's authority. He carried bodily limitation. He was exiled from Rome. He owned little. He left no grand monument. And yet he became a teacher of freedom. Not because life had been easy, but because he learned where freedom could still be found when ease was absent. This is why his story is so powerful when told softly. It does not need thunder. It does not need a battlefield. It is the story of an inner room that remained open. A lamp that was not put out. A mind that learned to distinguish between the chain and the self. The Roman world around him was full of spectacle. Processions, games, speeches, military triumphs, imperial portraits, coins stamped with faces of power. But Epictetus asked his students to look away from spectacle and toward practice. Can you be patient while waiting? Can you be kind when unnoticed? Can you be honest when lying would benefit you? Can you accept correction? Can you lose without being inwardly ruined? Can you remember that another person's anger belongs first to them, not to you? Can you meet illness, aging, change, and uncertainty without giving them your whole soul? These questions are quiet, but they are not small. They shape a life. And because they shape a life, they shape history in a way no empire fully understands. Imagine now a peaceful evening at the school in Nicopolis. The lesson is finished. Students have gone. The courtyard is empty. A clay lamp burns near a wall. Epictetus sits in stillness. Perhaps his leg aches. Perhaps the day has been long. Perhaps he hears from somewhere far off the sound of water or an animal moving in the dark. He is no longer young. He has seen much. Hierapolis, Rome, slavery, study, freedom, exile, teaching, the rise and fall of powerful men, the endless human search for peace in the wrong places. And perhaps he smiles faintly at the simplicity of it all. People cross seas for wealth. They flatter the powerful for office. They worry through the night over reputation. They fear poverty, age, insult, death. They chase what retreats. They cling to what changes. They overlook the one field they were truly given to cultivate. Themselves. Not the self as vanity, not the self as endless desire, but the self as character, the self as a small garden entrusted to one caretaker. There is soil there. There are weeds. There are seeds. There is weather. Some weather comes from outside, but the tending remains. This is perhaps the gentlest way to understand Stoicism. Not as coldness, not as pretending, but as tending the inner garden, removing the weight of needless fear, watering patience, supporting courage, giving sunlight to gratitude, pruning anger before it grows wild, accepting that storms will come, trusting that a garden can be tended again after rain. Epictetus' teachings later reached one of the most famous emperors of Rome, Marcus Aurelius. Marcus, too, would write about the inner life, about accepting nature, about acting with justice, about the smallness of fame. It is remarkable to imagine a man born enslaved, teaching ideas that would console an emperor. A teacher with little property, shaping the private thoughts of a ruler surrounded by responsibility. This is one reason the video title says he became more influential than emperors. Not because he commanded more people in his lifetime. Not because crowds carved his face into triumphal arches. But because influence is not only measured by obedience. Sometimes it is measured by companionship across time. Epictetus has kept company with prisoners, leaders, workers, parents, students, soldiers, writers, and quiet people lying awake in the dark. His words have traveled into cells, monasteries, libraries, classrooms, and bedrooms. They have crossed languages. They have crossed empires. They have crossed the strange distance between an ancient oil lamp and a modern nightstand. An emperor may command the body for a while. A teacher may guide the soul for centuries. Let us now listen to some of his wisdom in spirit, not as a lecture, but as night thoughts. When something troubles you, pause. Do not immediately give it the throne. An impression has arrived. A thought has knocked at the door. It says this is terrible. It says you are ruined. It says they do not respect you. It says the future is unsafe. But you do not need to open the door fully at once. You may say, wait. Let me look at you. Are you true? Are you useful? Are you mine to act upon? Or are you only a shadow moving across the wall? This pause is freedom. Small but real. The space between the knock and the opening. The space between the felling and the word. The space between the fear and the surrender. Epictetus teaches us to live in that space. To widen it gently. To become less easily carried away. He also reminds us that we are actors in a play not entirely written by us. The role may be short or long, noble or humble, comfortable or difficult. We did not choose every part, but we may choose how to perform it. If your role is small, perform it well. If your role is large, perform it well. If your role is hidden, perform it well. The measure is not applause. The measure is harmony with what is right. This can be a comforting thought before sleep. The day did not need to be impressive. It only needed moments of sincerity. Perhaps you answered one message kindly. Perhaps you completed one task. Perhaps you restrained one sharp word. Perhaps you endured one worry without letting it rule you. Perhaps you simply continued. That too belongs to the practice. The ancient philosophers did not become wise by having perfect days. They became wise by returning after imperfect ones. Again, again, again. In the quiet school of the mind, every evening is a lesson. And every morning is a beginning. Let us return once more to the physical world of Epictetus, because the senses help the mind rest. Nicopolis at dusk. The sea darkening beyond the city. A few fishing boats near the shore. Smoke rising from small homes. A child carrying water. A dog sleeping in a patch of dust. Olive leaves silver in the low light. Stone steps cooling after the heat. The school settling into silence. Inside, a scroll has been rolled and tied. A cup has been set aside. A lamp is trimmed. The last students walk home slowly, still thinking. One repeats the day's lesson under his breath. Do not be disturbed by what is not yours. Another thinks of his father's expectations. Another of a friend's insult. Another of a future he longs for too much. Each carries away not certainty, but a tool. A way to examine. A way to loosen the grip. A way to live with dignity in an uncertain world. And Epictetus remains behind, perhaps looking at the little flame. He knows that most students will forget. Then remember. Then forget again. This is natural. Human beings are not scrolls that can be written once and finished. We are more like instruments that must be tuned. The world untunes us. Philosophy retunes us. Sleep does this too in its own quiet way. The night gathers what the day has scattered. The body repairs what effort has used. The mind lets go of the sharp edges. And dreams sometimes carry us through old streets where teachers speak in courtyards and the stars are very clear. Epictetus grew old in Nicopolis. We do not have a detailed final scene. No grand farewell preserved in certainty. No exact last words shining like carved marble. Perhaps that is fitting. His life did not need a grand ending. It was a life that pointed away from display. Toward practice. Toward the inner faculty. Toward the quiet work of becoming free. At some point, the teacher's voice fell silent. The school continued in memory. The students grew older. Arian's notes traveled. The empire changed. Domitian was gone. Other emperors came and went. New anxieties replaced old anxieties. New palaces rose. Old statues cracked. The Mediterranean remained. The stars remained. Human fear remained. Human longing remained. And so Epictetus remained. Because every age needs to hear that not everything belongs to it. Every age needs to be told, gently, that control is limited. Every age needs to remember that peace cannot be built entirely from outward things. And every person at some hour comes to the edge of what they can command. A body will not obey. A plan will change. A relationship will shift. A reputation will tremble. A door will close. A message will not arrive. A day will not go as imagined. And there at that edge, Epictetus waits. Not with a miracle. Not with a promise that nothing will hurt. But with a lamp. Look carefully, he says. What is yours here? What is not? Do not abandon what is yours because of what is not. This may be one of the kindest teachings in ancient philosophy. It returns us to ourselves without making us the center of the universe. It gives us responsibility without pretending we control everything. It gives us humility without despair. It gives us freedom without needing a throne. Tonight, as you rest, you do not need to become a stoic sage. You do not need to master every fear. You do not need to divide every thought perfectly into what is yours and what is not. Just let the idea sit nearby, like a small lamp on a low table. Some things are up to us. Some things are not. The night is not asking you to solve the future. The body is asking for rest. The mind is asking for softness. The heart is asking to be allowed to unclench. Perhaps today contained something you could not control. A tone in someone's voice. A delay. A worry. A mistake already made. A future not yet visible. Let it be placed gently outside the inner door. Not thrown away. Not denied. Simply placed down for now. And what remains? The breath, the blanket, the quiet, the choice to rest, the permission to be unfinished. The old teacher from Nicopolis would understand unfinishedness. He taught students, not statues. He taught living people with restless minds and ordinary weaknesses. He did not demand that they become marble. He asked them to practice. So sleep, too, can become practice. A practice of releasing what cannot be held. A practice of trusting the night. A practice of returning to the simple body. The inhale. The exhale. The weight of the head. The softening of the eyes. Imagine now the ancient world growing dim. Rome is far away. Its streets are quiet. The imperial palace is dark. No trumpet sounds. No crowd gathers. The sea near Nicopolis moves under the moon. A lamp in the school burns low. The last scroll is closed. The benches are empty. The doorway opens to the night air. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, olive branches move gently. And the old teacher's lesson drifts like a whisper through the warm darkness. You may lose what was never fully yours. You may be misunderstood by those who do not understand themselves. You may travel roads you did not expect. You may carry burdens you did not choose. But still, there's a place within you where the next choice is made. Guard that place gently. Do not fill it with bitterness. Do not sell it for praise. Do not surrender it to fear. Keep it simple. Keep it clear. Keep it kind. This was the freedom of Epictetus. Not loud. Not decorated. Not dependent on fortune. A freedom that could live in a small room. Walk with a wounded leg. Leave Rome in exile. Teach beside the sea. And outlast emperors. Now the story begins to fade. Hierapolis fades into white terraces and morning mist. Rome fades into lamps and stone streets. Musonius fades into a quiet voice in a teaching room. Nicopolis fades into sea wind and olive trees. Epictetus fades into the words he left behind through those who listened. And the words become softer. Some things are ours. Some things are not. This breath is here. This moment is here. This night is here. There's nothing more to chase right now. Nothing more to hold tightly. The ancient lamps are going out one by one. The scroll is rolled. The courtyard is still. The stars remain where they have always been, patient and far above the changing world. And you may rest now, as the old teacher rests, as the sea rests beneath the moon, as the city rests after the heat of day. Let the future wait beyond the horizon. Let the past grow quiet behind you. Let the body sink gently into the dark. And if a thought comes, you may greet it softly. You may say, "Not now." You may say, "I will meet you when morning comes." For now, I am returning to what is mine. The breath, the calm, the quiet choice to let go. And somewhere in the deep ancient night, the voice of Epictetus becomes almost indistinguishable from the wind. Soft, steady, kind. Some things are up to us. Some things are not. And for now, sleep is enough.